Everything is based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Om Aganati Marandasya Garangana Salakya Chatsurun Miritam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Our title today is Answering the Call. If you've ever worked as a tradesman, like maybe Larry there, a few others of you, you would know that for every job, there's a right tool. And if you were a tradesman's assistant and he hollered for a left-handed, double-barreled McGillicuddy wedgeinator, you'd better know what it is. When I was about 19 years old, I decided to take some time off from the university and earn some money so that I could go to Europe. I got a job in a fencing company. On my first day on the job, we were sent inside the prison in downtown Pittsburgh. This is the most gloomy, medieval structure you could ever imagine. We're deep in the bowels of the prison, and the tradesman I was working with was up on a ladder repairing a chain link fence in there. And there was a bag of tools at the bottom with me. The tools were just scattered everywhere, willy-nilly, and aside from a screwdriver and a hammer, I had no clue what I was looking at there. And he would call down from the top of the ladder for this, that, and the other thing. All different sizes, all different shapes. The problem is, I didn't know what hardly any of the tools were. And he got so mad at having to call down to describe every tool in minute detail, to tell me what other tools I had to push aside so that then I could get to that tool. And worse yet, having to come down himself to the bottom of the ladder to grab the tool because it was quicker and easier. Well, you guessed the end of the story. I got my walking papers the next day. I remind myself of a joke I once heard about a university student. He arrived at a retail store for his first day of work. The owner tells him to pick up a broom and start sweeping. The student says, "But sir, don't you know that I'm a university student?" And the owner says, "Oh, Sonny, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that. In that case, give me the broom and I'll show you how to do it." Tools are important. Every occupation has its bag of tools. You wouldn't go to a surgeon who used a chainsaw and a pocket knife in the operating room. You wouldn't want a computer technician working on your computer with a 12-pound sledgehammer, although you felt like swinging one yourself before you brought it in for repairs. No, we want everyone to know and to use the proper tools for their trade. Little poem I just felt like throwing in. Princes and kings and clowns that caper and sawdust rings and common people like you and me are builders for eternity. Each of us is given a bag of tools, a shapeless mass, a book of rules, and each must make, before life has flown, a stumbling block or a stepping stone. As devotees, we're called to take Krishna consciousness to the world. That includes, by the way, Spanish for Utah. In the beginning, the creator of the universe, Lord Brahma, was called by the Lord himself to receive and pass on the primeval knowledge of the difference between the soul and the body and the supreme soul. Tene Brahma Vrida Ya Arekvaye Moyanti Yatsuriho. Brahma was even given multiple heads and multiple mouths in order to better do the job. Lord Brahma then equipped his disciple Narada Muni, who called and equipped his disciple Vyasadeva, who was Mahamuni Kimba Parirashaha, the literary incarnation of God, to compile all the Vedic literatures and make them accessible to human society. Now, coming into the modern age, our Guru Prabhupada was called by his Guru in 1926. Within the first 60 seconds of his meeting his Guru in Calcutta, he got his marching orders to preach in the West. He'd never been to the West. People in India at that time believed the West was a horrible place, overrun by drug addicts, alcoholics, womanizers, criminals. And there were lots of horror stories about how a holy man would never make it in America. No one would be interested in the message of the Bhagavad Gita. Nevertheless, those instructions became the defining principle of Prabhupada's life. He did not falter. He did not hesitate. He knew that once the divine task has been passed down, Krishna or God will make you and mold you that you can fulfill the mission. When Prabhupada finally arrived in the United States of America, he spoke with a funny accent. He was shorter in stature than most Americans who valued the kind of bulkiness that comes from a meat-centered diet. His clothes looked funny. The books he carried with him were full of printing errors. He was old, arriving in a culture which worshiped youth. He was penniless in the most affluent place on earth. His handicaps became assets. He was exactly who the disenchanted youths of the counterculture were looking for to save them. I heard a story one time about a Roman commander who was out on the edges of the Roman Empire fighting with some rebels. Now, as the running fight took him further and further away, he came into an area which up until that time had only been represented by the map makers with blank areas and fanciful monsters and dragons in it. So not knowing whether to forge ahead into the unknown or to turn back into the known, which would also be a retreat, he dispatched a messenger on a fast horse to Rome with this urgent request. Please send new orders. We have marched off the map. Have you ever felt like that? Like Prabhupada marching off the map into uncharted waters, left everything you've known, everything which is comfortable, familiar, as you pursue what Krishna or God wants you to pursue. And how can we hope to navigate? With help, that's how, with the help of an old and trusted friend. Upadasht anamartacha bharta bhokta maheshwaram. The Lord is seated in the heart as a friend to all living beings. The good news is that in each and every task, God has equipped us. Not only does He give the orders, but He also passes on the tools which are needed for the task. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 20th chapter, 17th verse, the human body, which can award all benefit in life, is automatically obtained by the laws of nature, although it is a very rare achievement. This human body can be compared to a perfectly constructed boat, having the spiritual master as the captain, the instructions of the personality of Godhead as favorable winds impelling it on its course. And considering all these advantages, a human being who does not utilize the human form of life to cross the ocean of material existence must be considered the killers of his own soul. I first met devotees in 1970. I happened to be in Australia. I settled there for 5 years. Got used to the roads, driving on the left side, got used to the economy, the people, the language, good I might. Developed the tools to reach out to them. And then we were uprooted to return to Los Angeles. I became the president in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is, I think you'll agree, a unique place in all of America. There were different challenges, different circumstances, different people. I had to learn and adapt. We had this huge festival, which is still going on every year in Golden Gate Park. And then Utah happened. They used to have a T-shirt in San Francisco that said, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you may be in Utah." Don't misunderstand. I wasn't moving whimsically from place to place. I would have happily put down my roots and preached my whole life in any one of those places. But life sometimes tricks you, takes away the predictable, makes your skill sets obsolete, forces you to get new skills, new tools, make new friends, adapt to a new environment. It is called old wine in new skins. Just like the wine cellar, he upgrades his skins every so often. Similarly, Krishna or God teaches us how to introduce Krishna consciousness to different times, different people, different places, and different circumstances. Same knowledge, new container. Then we got into the Festival of Colors. It's a tremendously young crowd. I found that they're very open and receptive to hip-hop and rap music. So at the age of 72 years old, as the master of ceremonies, I start hip-hopping and rapping. And as a matter of fact, I'm getting in the mood for next Saturday's Color Festival in Salt Lake City. When I look into your eyes, I see a spirit soul. When I look into your eyes, I see an eternal soul. I see a soul that's never born, a spark that never dies, that yearns to fly back home, back to the spiritual skies. From dust you come, to dust you go. Was not spoken of the soul. This body, like a set of clothes, wears out and gets disposed. A flame of light and love gives life to the machine. A candle never snuffs, subtle, sublime, unseen. For the soul there's no beginning, ending there's none. Small in the atom, brighter than the sun. When I look into your eyes, I see a shining soul. When I look into your eyes, I see a spirit soul. See a soul that's never born, a spark that never dies, that yearns to fly back home, back to the spiritual skies. The inner self continues when the outer body ends, like flame from wood, sparks ascending, transcending dark matter, blending with the sky, invisible to the naked eye. You cannot kill and you cannot die. You cannot burn, you cannot fry. The soul cannot be scorched by any blaze. No water can drown the spirit. No wind can make it fade. You cannot cut another, nor can you bleed. Soul is eternal, unborn, a seed, indivisible, indestructible, forever free from birth, death, old age, and disease. Yet howsoever turned or tossed, the soul can never exhaust. Seated in the heart, beating its drum, powering everyone, brighter than the sun, the soul's superior force lives on and runs its endless course in God's unlimited universe. I say Hari, you say Krishna. Hari. Hari. I say Krishna, you say Krishna. 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 I say Hari, you say Hari. 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 I say Hari, you say Rama. Hari. Hari. I say Rama, you say Rama. 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 I say Hari, you say Hari. 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 Just getting in the mood, if you don't mind. Thanks for indulging me. Now, Krishna has promised, especially for those who love him, you'll always feel his presence with you. There's a story of Narada Muni. Narada Muni didn't know who his father was. He was the illegitimate son of a maidservant. In those days, that was a polite way of saying prostitute. And he lost his mother at the age of 5 years. She got bitten by a snake. What greater adjustment could one be called upon to make at the tender age of 5 years old? And yet Narada Muni, somehow or other, always chanted, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namami Antasya Hatatra Papatan Goyani Badani Kitani Chishmaran. He wandered all over the world without any visa, without any passport, without any traveler's checks. Krishna had adopted him as his own. Krishna gave him the tools to preach all over the three worlds. In his next birth, it was described, Bahir Antas Chalokam Stream Paryemi Askandit Anugrahain Mayanam Pratishtam Dishamutaram. In his next birth, he got a transcendental spiritual body which enabled him to travel throughout the three material worlds, lower, middle, and upper, as well as into the spiritual world. I don't know if you've noticed how it is that God often picks the least likely, the most inexperienced, the least connected, the least obvious, and raises them the highest. Though Narada Muni was born the son of a single parent, and that sole parent died when he was an infant, Krishna equipped him up to the point there isn't a single one of the 1 billion people who live in India who does not know and revere the holy name of Narada Muni. Speaking of tools, I think you know that if you're going to build a house, you need two things. You need a straight edge and you need a level. You need something to draw straight lines, to make 90-degree angles, which are the strongest angles in any construction. And you need to make sure that you're building on a horizontal plane, which is the strongest foundation for any residential or commercial structure. For us, the 4 regulative principles: no illicit sex, no intoxicating, no meat eating, and no gambling. Those are the level by which we know our spiritual life is not in jeopardy. It's on solid footing. And our daily chanting on beads, a scheduled number of rounds, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, keeps us strong, keeps us going higher and higher without getting weaker. If you do these two things, Krishna promises, Tesham evanu kampartam aham agyanam dam tamasa. He's seated within the heart. With the torchlight of knowledge, he will destroy the darkness born of ignorance. In a book called The Topmost Yoga, Prabhupada writes, we are searching for a friend to give us peace and tranquility. That friend is Krishna, or God. I heard a story about a college student. He spent a year with the Navajo tribe as part of his PhD thesis. He lived with one family, slept in their home, ate their food, worked side by side with them. He developed a particular attachment to the grandfather. Initially, he spoke no Navajo, and yet a close relationship evolved between the student and the elderly chief. They spent a great deal of time together. And despite the language barrier, the young man picked up a heightened understanding of love and friendship. And in due course, he was able to speak a few words of Navajo. And when it came time for him to return to college, with tears in his eyes, he pieced together this concept in Navajo. To the grandfather, he said, I like me best when I'm with you. It's the same thing with God Almighty, our loving Father. We like ourselves best when we're with Him, chanting His holy names, following His orders to keep ourselves strong and spread Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When we are heart and soul with Him through sound vibration, we are the best versions of ourselves. Why? He's our center. The regulative principles are the level, and the chanting is the straight edge to know that we belong to Him and we have a holy heart. 50 years ago, as you may know, carpenters used tools which were regular in those days. They had circular saws and hand drills. Remember the hand drill? And they didn't have the pneumatic tools which are around today. What do pneumatic tools do? Like the nail gun. It makes jobs go quicker, and the average carpenter today is 10 times more powerful than the carpenter was 50 years ago with the tools that are available at that time. Now, here's a trivia fact for you. I'll bet you didn't know that the word pneuma is a Greek word which means the Spirit of God within you. Through this power of Spirit, Krishna from within supplies tools for the ministry that He calls us to do. It is said that God doesn't always call the equipped, but He always equips those that He calls. He makes you 10 times more powerful than you could have ever been on your own. Through the power of Spirit, we're never alone. Knowing that we don't walk alone gives us a boldness that we didn't have before. That boldness reminds us that there is no place we can go where there isn't God. There's no place we can go where God hasn't already been. Everywhere His hands and legs, His eyes and faces, His arms. He sees everything. He knows everything. He goes ahead of us, makes the crooked places straight, lines up the right connections. When Krishna created us, He had already established an eternal relationship with Him in one of 5 rasas. And since then, as the super soul, He has accompanied us birth after birth, whispering invitations to recall and to recover that intimate relationship. He's already paved the way to where He wants us to go, and He's already equipped us with the tools that we need to get there. All we have to do is respond. All we have to do is accept that relationship which we've already had with Krishna or God since the beginning of time. It's become covered over. We've forgotten. But once you revive your love of God, there comes a boldness from knowing that we have never been alone, nor will we ever be alone. He always accompanies us as our well-wishing friend. And what Krishna has done for us, he's done for millions and millions of others. 500 years ago, Lord Nityananda, the eternal associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the course of spreading Krishna consciousness, approached two brothers, Jagai and Madai, in Bengal. There were no crimes these two brothers had not committed. Rape, murder, extortion, embezzlement, robbery. They were always intoxicated. They were extremely violent. Why did Lord Nityananda approach them, beseeching them to give up their violent ways and chant the holy names of the Lord? Why was he so bold? Because he knew something about them that they didn't even know about themselves. That each and every one of us, no matter how covered it is, has a primeval, original relationship with the Lord. This, in fact, is the central overriding fact of our creation and our existence. Nityananda knew that all he had to do was get the dust off, to revive and rekindle that love of God, which is at the core of every living being. Nityananda knew it wasn't possible to revive the flame of love of God and for one to simultaneously maintain sinful activities any more than it's possible for darkness to coexist with light. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Because Krishna has already prepared the hearts and minds of those to whom we are sent, we can go with a boldness because we're not alone. Downtown Miller is about 5 city blocks. So in the early 70s, we used to circumambulate that block maybe 10 times during the course of a 4-hour day, chanting and distributing magazines. About once every 20 minutes, we'd come by this flower sale. And initially, he was so angry, he would just spew out epithets. You couldn't hear, fortunately, because of the chanting. But literally, spittle would come out. And he would take flowers and he would throw them. And they would hurt. If you got hit with a flower, it would actually hurt. But month after month, year after year, we didn't change our routine. Gradually, you could see the edge was coming off. That he stopped, in the course of time, resenting us. And eventually you could see him loosening up, a little trace of a smile. He ended up, at least once a day, taking a huge bouquet of flowers, wrapping them up very lovingly, and handing to a member of the Sankirtan party as it went by and said, please take these back and offer them to Sri Sri Radha Gopinath at the temple. The Lord is not only in your heart, but he's in the heart of those who oppose you as well. And when he wills it, your enemy will become your friend. It is said here, the Lord may dictate to tigers and other jungle animals not to disturb his devotees. How many of you have been Mormon missionaries, just out of curiosity? So you always had a partner, right? Nityananda's partner was Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was called the example of chanting the holy names of the Lord. He used to chant Hare Krishna's beads 21 hours a day. Now, one time, he was living in a cave in the jungle, chanting his rounds. It so happened that a venomous snake also cohabited the cave with him. Now, some admirers and followers would come to visit Haridas every day, but they couldn't come too close because they were afraid of the snake. One day they suggested that if Haridas Thakur could leave that place and live somewhere else, they would have more access to him. So no sooner had Haridas, he didn't say anything in response, but he resolved within his heart that the next day he would relocate to another cave. The minute that he made that resolution, as if to say, don't bother, don't disturb yourself, that snake slithered out of the cave looking for another place. The same Lord was in the heart of the snake as was in the heart of Haridas Thakur. So as soon as the snake crawled out of its hole, then the followers were able to have access to Haridas Thakur. If I keep God first place, I will always have my footsteps guided. Keeping God first place, He'll always give you the right words to say in the right circumstance to the right person. Krishna is, you might say, your stowaway wherever you go. Doesn't make any difference. Here, there, Spanish Fork, Salt Lake City, Los Angeles, anywhere else, in your comfortable office, on the street, in a cave, at home, in a distant city, whether you're alone or whether you're with a big group of people, as long as we trust that the Spirit of God is both within and without, coming and going, in front and behind, in the past and the present, as well as the future, we'll always have the right tools at the right times. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We've all seen these cop movies where the UC, the undercover guy, goes into a room wearing a wire with a little invisible bud in his ear so the handler can tell him exactly what to say in any circumstance. That's kind of what the Lord in the heart does for His devotees who answer the call. When we're called, we're not alone. We don't have to rely solely on ourselves, on our power. We have the power of the Almighty both within our hearts and within the hearts of other living entities. He's fully present within each and every atom. If we keep Him first place, He will equip us for what we need. Many years ago in Los Angeles, to this day, there's a big chanting party that goes out from the temple on Venice Beach, and we go to Westwood Village on Saturday nights. There's a plaza with a bank, which is closed on the weekend. 30 or 40 devotees chant there every Saturday night. And I used to go out 10 or 15 steps in front of the chanting party between kirtan sets and address the crowd, say a few words about what it was all about. Well, one evening, a big, strong, apparently Christian young man came up to me. He came within an inch of my face, clenched his fists, and he said, "Krishna is not God." So I'm thinking, okay, I don't think the chanting party heard that. I don't think they're picking up on the fact that I could get my face punched in. It's like 15 feet back to the chanting party. I don't think I could make it. Krishna! So I said to him, that's fine. If you don't think that Krishna is God, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But would you agree that God is all-powerful? He said, yes, I would agree. Krishna is a name which means, among other things, all-powerful. Okay. Would you agree that God is all-knowing? Yes, I would. Well, another meaning of the name Krishna is that He's all-knowing. Okay. Would you agree that God is the most beautiful, being the source of all beauty? Okay. Another meaning of Krishna is that He's the most beautiful. He's the most famous. He's the most humble. I don't have a problem with you saying that Krishna is not God. But how about God is Krishna? He thought about that a moment. He said, cool, I can live with that. Give me a big smile, a high five, and walked away. And I'm thinking, thank you, Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Starting with the Lord Himself, through Brahma, Narada, Vyasadeva, Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda, Haridas, the 6 Goswamis, Bhaktisiddhanta, and our own Guru Prabhupada, we followers have been called upon and appointed to go into the world to preach. It's like being struck by lightning. Your life is never the same again. Kind of scary. And not only that, it's the Kali Yuga age of quarrel and hypocrisy. Anybody disagree with that? It's the winter season. Now, the good news is you have the right tools for the right job, the right words, the right connections, the right time. Now, to keep yourself fit And moving forward, there are the 4 regular principles and the chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Keep yourself grounded and strong. There's nothing to worry about. The Lord's got you. You have your earpiece in. You have a direct line of communications with the Lord of millions of universes. Krishna doesn't give us everything at one time. He doesn't give us more than what we need at the moment. We don't need that. We couldn't handle that. He gives us what we need in the now, in this day, in this season, in this place, with these people, in these circumstances. He has solutions to challenges which have not yet arrived. He's arranged for future enemies to become your well-wishers. He's originally created every living being to love him intimately, sweetly, eternally. He's entered into everyone's heart in order to guide them in the right direction. If you will minister with the boldness of knowing that you're never alone, the boldness of knowing that Krishna is always on the throne, the boldness of knowing that he has all of us in the palm of his hand, you will make this life successful, and at the end of this life, you'll go back to home, back to God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.